while overall there is some agreement about some characteristics of organized crime, there is no complete agreement, let alone one uncontested definition of it, whether scientific or legal. The root of this confusing state of affairs is found in the different perspectives of those who were in a position to shape how the various phenomena associated with the label organized crime are understood in society. Crime, its causes, consequences, and efforts to suppress it, all represent a complex reality which is understood by each one of us in society in different ways, depending on our experiences, ideas, and values. Additionally, this understanding is shaped by powerful institutions and organizations that actively attempt to influence how an issue is viewed and addressed, depending on their interests and aims. A similar divergence and diversity of views can be found among those who study organized crime, since their various theoretical backgrounds and methodological preferences, and the demands institutions make on scientific research, are all likely reflected in their approaches. The state of flux in which the concept of organized crime often seems to be found is also due to the fact that its development has been a policy and scientific endeavor that emerged in the second half of the 20th century, that is, fairly recently. The label organized crime, however, applies to illicit activities that have occurred regularly throughout history, in various geographical contexts and economic, social, and political conditions. Criminal activities such as piracy, banditry, smuggling, and the trade in illegal goods, the exploitation of labor under conditions of slavery, fraud, or extortion, have long preceded the concept. Retrospectively, it is even possible to understand a wider variety of phenomena such as the abuse of corporate power, speculation, or the bribery and corruption of officials as historical instances of organized crime. The very early use of the words organized crime was itself ambiguous, as it applied to disparate phenomena ranging from political violence to conventional crime, committed perhaps by more capable criminals. The association of organized crime with professional criminal groups, a stereotypical representation of the phenomenon in popular culture, particularly in connection with specific ethnic groups, has a distinctive United States origin. The social anxieties and the moral crusades against vice and crime during the Progressive era paved the way, ironically, for an unprecedented growth in organized crime. The Progressives preferred tools for social engineering, prohibitions, such as those on gambling, drugs, and most famously alcohol, opened up the opportunity for large-scale, highly lucrative underground enterprise. The Great Prohibition is remembered as the time of unbridled bootlegging and racketeering, of gangster wars, and the rise of some iconic mobster figures such as Al Capone, Bugsy Siegel, Lucky Luciano, or Meyer Lansky. The formulation of the concept of organized crime carries the marks of the experiences of that period, involving strong and typically violent criminal groups, substantial illicit enterprise, and public corruption. The diverse group of social scientists who study organized crime approach it by focusing on three different aspects, all of which were arguably visible in those early manifestations of the phenomenon. What makes organized crime different from conventional crime can, first, be the very element of the criminal collectivity. In other words, there is something particular about the way criminals associate or link with each other. Their association can be understood as something akin to organizations as we experience them in everyday life. A system of activity directed towards a common purpose, involving membership, rules, roles, and a work system to accomplish its goals. Criminal association can also be understood as a network, involving patterns of activity between participants who are connected more strongly or loosely and take up